It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for about an hour. This is a panel discussion. We bring the people in from the gun channels community. People, members on gunchannels.com, come together and chat about firearms all the time. And when the show goes live, we send out links. So if you'd like to be a member of the panel here, let us know over on gunchannels.com. We're simulcasting it from YouTube, so we're watching the text over there as well. And we're going to start the show off today with a video that was posted earlier on the Gun Website's YouTube channel from a place that we, 1024 Products, a pretty cool old company that we found at SHOT Show down in the basement in the law enforcement rooms. So in an effort to kind of let the show get alerted or whatever it's called on the crummy YouTube platform that hates guns, we'll run this video for a couple of minutes, and then we'll see who all shows up on the panel. A whole bunch of links are out there over on Gun Channels, and we'll be back in a couple moments. Is there audio in this thing?
Designed for biking, hiking, running, limit pushing a stroller, anywhere where you want to carry a pistol in an easily accessible spot, but you might not be dressed for it, or you might need to have your hands free, or you're wearing stuff. You can wear a backpack over this. Basically mounts on the chest, padded in the back, hard plastic so on it. You can open it, fully adjustable ambidextrous holster. You can put police, sheriff, CCW, whatever identifier you need to put on there. It's got a slot for keys and IDs. A pouch here for your cell phone, spare bags, or whatever. Each side has a cutout for cables. There are cable guides here so that you can wear headsets. The cable will not end up in front of the holster in case you need to draw it. 13-degree off angle with padding for the shoulder straps. Elastic here to keep them in place and comfortable. Fully adjustable for height. You've got a belly band that's also fully adjustable. Fixed on one side with elastic so that it will expand and contract. And then Fastex buckle on the other side. The dome is off, comfortable, lightweight, and will carry up to a mid-sized pistol.
And made in the USA.
Made in the USA, yes, sir.
That's awesome.
California is where the manufacturing occurs.
You caught my eye with innovative, adding some first aid stuff to the center of police and people wearing soft armor, but that's awesome that that's available for runners, boat, right?
Yeah, boating, horseback, I can't imagine limitations of what you can do.
Right on. Thanks for taking the time. Have a great show.
Thank you, guys.
The guys and gals of Gun Website.
So did anybody get a chance to check out 1024 Products downstairs?
No, I didn't, but that's pretty interesting.
Did that audio come through all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've actually got a product here that I hadn't done anything with yet called the Pistol Slicker, which is a similar holster setup to that, but that's got way more options than this one I've got. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
So I don't know if this works as a format or not, but that was a video that just a couple minutes long, so we figured start the show off with that. All the people that are getting their alerts and stuff. Oh, I didn't get Pasha link. That way people can jump in. So I'll quit trying to talk and type at the same time, and you guys will see if somebody wants a link out there. Send them a link. We got Clover jumping in from Texas. Thanks for joining.
You bet. Thanks for the link.
Gizzard's jumping in from Kansas. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for the invite.
I guess Nightstrike used whatever software he used to get into Clover's chat, and he's here in South Carolina. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for letting me jump in.
Because that software was the Gun Channel's instant message. And then Armenthea's jumping in. I guess you're also in Texas. Let's assume she's also in Texas. Thanks for joining.
Yes, I'm in Texas also. Thank you.
And there's Hosh jumping in from California. And I am in Arizona. So we got people from pretty much all over, just not north, really. Gary's the furthest north.
Yo. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for jumping in. So we're basically just getting started. So today's Thursday. We normally talk about CCW or training, but I don't care about either one of those topics all that much anymore. So we can talk about anything, really. That was Dano's topics, and he doesn't even show up for Thursdays anymore.
Topic.
He's too busy Ubering.
Can we... Anybody have any interest in talking about like a survival gun, like a bush gun, possibly something you can break down, put in a backpack, like an M6 Scout kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Are there any new things on the market in that area?
So Seven Wonders says, I'm going to address something here, dude. So this is my chat. I don't like addressing this shit, but I'm going to address it because it needs to be addressed every once in a while. I don't put myself on video because I never put myself. I did actually back in the day because I was a chump like everybody. I just did videos the same way I used to see TV, right? And I didn't like it. After about a minute, it got boring watching a whole video screen with a little tiny dot in the center, which was the gun. All I cared about was the gun, and all I cared about showing my friends back home was the gun. They didn't need to see me. So as soon as I started doing videos that way, I liked videos better that way. And then after a long time of putting effort in, I became a larger channel, and I went to places like SHOT Show and places like manufacturers and stuff. And at the time, there was people that were taking pictures for forums and stuff, and they were treated differently when they went to SHOT Show booths, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to be treated differently, so I ran my channel a little bit differently. Then the phenomenon of YouTube happened, and I got to experience it as being a larger channel than Hickok for many years. And then he became larger at the beginning of 2013, and I got to experience what it's like raw, and then I got to experience it in a network, and then I got to experience it without the network. I got to experience it with making money, without making money. I pretty much experienced all the channel's growths and seen these people when they were just doing it and when they were doing it large. And I saw the audiences when people were doing it just for their own interests, and then when they were doing it for other interests, and they had large audiences. And when I start seeing large audiences in 2013 affect change on a national level, and actually have a consequence and a something that lasts, as a real something that a consequence from all of our efforts. And then I see 14 and 15 and 16 and 17 and 18. And all I see is people that are trying to become famous and be the equivalents of what the superstars were back in the day, or the famous athletes, or, figureheads. What does that help? How does audience gain by sitting back and watching people who they care about what shirts they're wearing, or what shoes they're wearing, or what guns they're shooting, for that matter? That might be interesting, and that might move money around. But how does that create activists? I haven't seen it create activists. What I have seen create activists is Clover. I've seen Hosh create activists. I've seen Gary create activists, and I've seen Nightstrike create a platform that those activists can use. So I like Modern Marvels, and that's a valid platform that never had a human being on it. I modeled my channel after that, and since then I value my anonymity because I can go into a gun shop and not be treated like Hickok. I don't get treated like Military Arms Channel. I don't get treated like any of those people. So I don't think of it as a gimmick. It's something I value, and I do it with intent, and it has nothing to do with being a gimmick. So I'm not going to address it again, but I also don't like people that fixate on it. So if you want to stay on my good graces, quit fixating on that shit, and let's move on. I'm not going to address it again.
All right.
All right. We've covered that, the first topic already.
So
I interrupted somebody. Hosh was talking about some gun or something.
I'm stuck around a gun. I don't
Right,
know.
you know?
I don't know. I will say though, as far as shirts go, I am going to show off this shirt. It's a Pikachu.
A Pikachu, don't tread on me.
Yeah. Think of anybody have something like that? I don't think so. I don't know where I got this. But I saw that and I was like, oh man, I gotta have that. Anyway, so yeah, survival gun, like a bush gun, like a gun you can take in a backpack. Like I'm a big fan of the combo guns. I know there's a little bit old school, like the M6 Scout. I would love to get one of those if I could get my hands on one. Something like that. I know that Chiappa came out with the. It's not the Badger, but it was. I have the one that's a 410 and a 22 mag. But is there anything else like that on the market? I know.
Doesn't Henry have one?
Didn't Henry have it called the AR-7?
The AR-5. Isn't it the AR-5?
That's the one that
floats?
folds up. Floatable thing. Here's the thing with that. I've seen
It's funky looking.
I've seen quite a few. I've seen quite a few of those on the range. They give problems. They wouldn't be nearly as reliable for me to consider some type of a bush gun that I would have to depend to get food or something. And on top of that, the sights are plastic and absolutely horrid.
Yeah, I mean, that gun's been around for a really long time, and I'm not going to crap on it because I think there's tons of videos. You can go watch that if you want to. It's literally been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
Is there anything new? Is anybody doing this new, or is there even a new combo gun? The last combo gun I saw come out was like the Savage Model 42, and that was a train wreck of a gun. Yeah, I'm just curious, like where we're at with that, because maybe it's just a dying thing. People are really
How
aren't into
about
it
something like I bought, and this was used, mind you, about 10 years old, but it was a combination shotgun, a 20 gauge shotgun, and a 22 long rifle. But it was a single shot, and basically the barrels were interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
So you could take it all apart, and then basically the whole thing was maybe 1.5 to 2 foot long at the most.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty neat little thing.
And they even have, I don't think they make those anymore, but they had what they called the trifecta. I've seen several of those, and it was actually, you got like a 22 long, a 20 gauge, and like a 243 barrel for them.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, so that's not necessarily a good bush gun because that's a lot of metal to be taken out there and carrying it around, packing it in, packing it out kind of thing. That's why I think I like I'm so fixated on the M6 Scout is that there's break action, real simple. You could operate it with gloves. You could take the pin out. You could put it in your backpack and it had a space for ammunition carrying. Really just a very forward thinking. I believe it was an Air Force survival gun when it first came out in the market.
Right.
Really just a buddy has one. I've only shot it a couple of times, but it's not the greatest gun. I won't say that, but it's very interesting for what it is. And it's nicely weighted, nicely sized.
Well, I think if you look at market, and just the amount of tactical home defense, that sort of thing, with the way the market seems saturated with that sort of stuff, I think it really kills off some of the things like you're talking about, some of the old school stuff, because we see things now like that have been out for a while, of course, but you've got the sub 2000, of course, from Kel-Tec that'll fold in half. I mean, you could literally put that in a briefcase, with things like that. And then you've got the, Ruger, of course, with their takedown and the 9mm even in that now. And then places like Deadfoot Arms, that have the ARs, which you could go PCC, or larger caliber, or even 22. But that sort of stuff, and the double folder where the stock folds around and the barrel folds around. And again, you're talking about being able to put that into a smaller space, a smaller footprint, smaller bag, smaller space. And I just think the way the market is, and with things like that out, that people aren't really giving thought to the old school survival rifles of the day.
Yeah. So the thing is, I guess I'm caught up with the combination type firearm concept because, a folder 22 is good, but I don't know that I would want that necessarily out in a survival situation, you know, or, you know, whatever. I'd rather have 12 gauge, but I also don't want a full size 12 gauge necessarily, because those are heavy and ammunition's heavy for them. So, you know, it's kind of tough. I appreciate that it's kind of a tough thing to get a gun out there like that. And that market, you know, what was the Savage that was really popular? The Model 24, I think it was. That was the one that was, you could get it in 12 gauge or 20 gauge, and you can get it in 22 or 225 or whatever, or 223, sorry. Really, and that time maybe has moved on. I don't know. I know that Chiappa made the Little Badger, which was that little wire folder that was 22 long rifle.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an interesting sub market.
Just a thought, but I hear you talking 12 gauge. If you had an 18.5-inch barrel 12 gauge pump, a shotgun breaks down awfully easy.
Yeah, so the best example of a kind of take apart 12 gauge that came to mind was the Model 12, right? That you could twist off the receiver and you could have two parts if you wanted to go that way. But that's still a lot of gun too, because it's all wood furniture. So, you know, that whole, there are options. It's kind of like one of those things. It happens in all kinds of markets. There's all kinds of options that will work, but there's no real option that's like good, perfect. You know what I mean? Like the perfect solution.
Well, and,
you know,
and even something like the Shockwave, I mean, that could be done in a scabbard, you know, fairly easily.
Well, what about something like, you know, a pistol caliber carbine, like, you know, the Kel-Tec Sub 2000, where you can just fold it in half? That might be a good a good example. Or hell, Kel-Tec makes full length rifles that you can literally fold in half as well. That's the SU-16C. So,
oh wait, what is it?
It's the Kel-Tec SU-16C.
Oh, yeah.
Well, basically, it's a 223 rifle that basically folds in half. But again, it would be easier to take it along because, you know, it folds in half instead of, you know, being one long, you know, singular rifle.
Yeah, they actually have a California version of that too. They've had it out for a while. It's an interesting it's kind of like an AR platform, but a more polymer, I guess you could say. They even have the two magazines that shove up into the buttstock, which is pretty nice.
But again, if you could get like a Sub 2000 or like one of those Kel-Tecs, those would probably be good enough in that kind of situation for survival or just, you know, a gun to take with you to go camping or hiking.
Right.
One of the things, I mean, weight's definitely an issue that I'm thinking, but then not only weight of the firearm, but weight of the ammunition. And then the second thing too is, you know, like I said, when you're talking about the double fold ARs or any of the modern PCCs or something like that, is you're talking semi-auto. And, you know, if you're out in the elements and stuff like that for very long, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not like are you going to carry a bunch of cleaning supplies with you and stuff? I just don't know. You know, I just don't know about the whole semi-auto thing.
And I got to say that's part of the reason why, going back to the M6 Scout, that's part of the reason why I like it so much, is that it's just stupid simple. It's a simple hammer fired over under type thing with a selector little pull out nub that's on it. It works in cold. It works in other environments. I was looking actually at there is, I don't know if they're still available, but it's basically a bush gun for Alaska pilots or whatever, and they've got it in 45-70, which is probably overkill. But something like that, like a takedown, you know, lever action might be a good option.
Right.
That's probably about as far weight wise I'd want to go. Something with a short barrel.
Yeah,
it would be better than anything.
Well, and something like Adam out there in the chat was talking about a 22 revolver, and you know, I think something like I've got a Taurus Tracker, for example, 7-inch barrel, and I mean, you could shoot squirrels at 100 yards with that. So you know, it could be done, especially if you was to rest it. You know, so I mean, it would certainly get you by. I think in a survival situation, obviously anything's better than nothing. But the conversation here is more, what's the optimal, right?
Yeah, and I was curious if there's anything new on the market, which sounds like there isn't. The Chiappa stuff, I think that was it's like 4 years ago now when all that started popping off. Yeah. You know, nothing's really changed in that space since then.
Yeah.
But maybe that's because everybody has, you know, folding ARs, and that's mostly what people are taking out, because, you know, 5.56 is pretty light if you think about it, pound for pound, against even, you know, other rounds, and you're good enough for a lot of situations with that.
Yeah, for what you're getting out of it, you're talking about being able to take, you know, the small game and medium game for sure, you know, and you know, with shot placement or something like that, obviously, you know, a big game type, you know, scenario, and then you've got range, the potential for range on it as well. Whereas with a 22 or a shotgun, you're not really going to have that. And I don't know, with the shotgun, I mean, it's going to depend on, you know, are you going to carry slugs, or are you going to carry buckshot? And then if you've got to use it to defend yourself in a survival situation, buckshot would probably get it done. But at what range, if that person was to have a rifle or, you know, something like that, potentially an issue. And then if you're talking a hunting application, you know, if you're able to get fairly close range, buckshot will get it done. But at a longer range, that's going to be fairly difficult. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I shy away from a shotgun a little bit in a survival situation.
Yeah, it'll be too heavy.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I just don't, like I said, I don't necessarily see that as optimal. I mean, well, like I said, anything's better than nothing, but I think I'd rather have, you know, I think I would go probably, you know, 2.23 would probably be my choice.
Yeah, it's I guess it's the versatility of the shotgun, because you already mentioned it, slugs and all the different shots you can take with it, buckshot, birdshot, whatever. You know, Dave Canterbury back in the day had a video series on using an HR-12, just a single barrel break action hammer fired 12 gauge, and he would actually muzzle load it in certain situations. So he would just have some empty holes, and he would pop the primer out and replace the primer, which is, again, more versatility. Shotgun's very versatile in that area. But again, that's nothing new. We're talking about something that's like, what, 10 years old at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, shot shells. That's another thing about the shot shells that you can't dismiss is reloading. I mean, you can, something to hammer with, you know, is pretty much all you pry with and hammer with. So a pocket knife and a rock, you know.
You just need a punch, really.
And you could reload. Yeah, I mean, a punch would work great, but, you know, very rudimentary tools, and you wouldn't even have to muzzle load. You could actually load the shells. You can reuse a wad. It's not nearly as effective, assuming you could find it. It's not nearly as effective, but it can be done.
Some of those cowboy guys, cowboy reenactors, there's still available metal full casings for shotgun. And so he would have some of those, right? That were, you know, you could just reuse those over and over again for an example.
Yeah. Or you could do it even with the plastics. I mean.
Oh, yeah. No question.
Yeah. And I mean, with your wadding, I mean, you could use multiple things, even if you needed wadding, even if you couldn't find the wad. But, you know, you're talking about having to carry shot, and shot's heavy. So, you know, that's definitely a drawback. Of course, you know, I guess you could load rocks or gravel or something else if you just had to.
I guess that's the there's that, back to that versatility. You got a big old hole, all things considered, with a shotgun. So why not just cram everything you can in there?
Yeah. And black powder, I mean, for those that haven't you know, muzzle loaded shotguns before, I don't necessarily would recommend what Canterbury was doing. You have to be really careful with that. But if you have an actual muzzle loading shotgun, and I do, playing with those is a blast, because it literally anything you can poke down the barrel, you know, is.
So we're saying, I think we're saying best survival weapon is a blunderbuss.
A blunderbuss.
So we just throw anything down that thing, and
you could find one.
Tap the pan, and or modify to take a primer, and there you go.
Well, obviously, I mean, if you're talking about end world scenario, flintlock would definitely be the way to go. You wouldn't have to worry about primers, so or caps, which is going to be an issue. But powder can be made, and projectiles is, I mean, just look around on the ground, right? So, and then if you're talking about a patch, well, that could be, you know, if you needed a patch, that could be done with clothing or cardboard, or I mean, that's something that's going to be readily available.
Tally ho, gentlemen.
But that would be a longer term survival thing.
Yeah, I'm assuming most of the assholes are dead at that point.
Yeah, if you're talking about in-world scenario where, you know, you're 10 years in or something, then that's where you would be making your own powder and doing other things. And honestly, from where I'm standing, a bow and arrow it would be the best, most efficient way of doing that.
Papa, tell me the time when we had 7.62 by 54R corrosive ammo still.
Right. Dragons flew in the sky and all this other stuff.
The flying birds. What did you call them? Aeroplanes, son. Aeroplanes.
That'll be your kids. Yep. Airplanes are like, they won't remember.
They won't remember. They won't know.
Unfortunately.
You know, he's 5. He's never been. Well, no, he has been on an airplane once. So.
What I'm thinking they'll do on the high-speed trains is, you know how like when you go to Vegas and they have that one street where there's the lights up in the sky and you can literally, there's like a F-16 that flies down that street. I've seen it like in LED lights, right? They make it's like a big TV screen basically. So they make this big airplane fly across the street sort of, and that's what they'll do when you're driving in the trains cross country. They'll project what it was like to have planes flying in the sky in the glass.
Because the ozone is, you know, we just have, it's all smoke and clouds, right? So we can just project right onto it.
Oh, I guess I didn't think of that. No, we'll save that. That won't happen.
Oh, okay.
Get rid of airplanes.
You wouldn't need them. When we all go back to, you know, bandolier of pistols, the brace of flintlocks that I'm going to start carrying when they turn open carry back on in California. That's, you know.
So you're telling us you want to dress up like Pancho Villa?
No, I want to be like my regular outfit, but then put on a bandolier of pistols when open carry is allowed again. Like just, you know, modestly, like 3 or 4 pistols. That's all.
3 or 4.
So I've lost interest in these theoretical discussions of survival because we've had too many of them over the years.
Sorry.
I'm just going to change the subject a little bit, but so once you take any of them out to any length, then everyone's dead. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's not enough resources and stuff. So realistically, instead of just looking at like the way you guys were looking at it, like with the scenario being a question mark and you're trying to create a firearm that's most applicable to as many question marks as you could possibly come up with, why don't we look at it from what are realistic like situations, like either things that have already existed or that are at least within plausible reality, because there is no like we're going to turn into Grizzly Adams and stuff. There's just not enough infrastructure and resources available for as many. Back in the olden days when there was like 15 people came over from England and there was like 25 Indians here, there was plenty of resources. We could do whatever we wanted, right? Now when you've got cities of millions of people, any portion of them that go out into any number of huge acres immediately depopulate the area and eat everything that's green. And you know, there's just not possible to go back to nature. So what realistic scenarios are we even talking about? I guess I'm asking this because I think realistically we're talking about what was Katrina, probably the longest lasting one, maybe the earthquakes that you had back in the 90s, I guess, in California, or was it the 80s? But you know, of the things that have actually happened, how long do they really happen, and how long could they actually happen? Like if a real Mount St. Helens, I mean, what are some realistic things that we could actually?
Oh, that, I mean, yeah, that's, if you're talking about localized disasters, I went without, you know, the Whittier Narrows earthquake. We were in Whittier. We went without 5 days without power and electricity. So 5 to 7 days is a good estimate that a lot of first responders use. I know we covered that in the CERT classes. You know, 5 to 7 days is a relatively okay amount of time for localized disaster. If you're talking about, you know, Mount St. Helens, the skies are full of ash and cloud, and everybody is, if you survive the first 2 weeks, then okay, you got a shot at making it. That kind of stuff, that, you know, there's typically no end, right? I mean, that actually, what was the, I don't want to go on a rant here, but there was a study done maybe 5 months ago, 6 months ago, about if we had a main power grid like meltdown for whatever reason. And there was multiple valid reasons. EMP, that wasn't the main reason. It was just localized hacking or just, destruction of enough that could take the whole grid down. And they were saying like it could be months. 6 months was a relatively optimistic, conservative term to be without power. And without power means you're without everything in a lot of urban environments, particularly like LA, where we pump in water, right? Because where's the pressure come from, right?
Mm-hmm. So you're talking like a deliberate or an intentional, at least, attack or series of events that take out enough of the electric infrastructure that, like, literally sections of the grid are out for, you're saying, 6 months?
Yeah, I'm gonna find the link and then I'll post it internally, and G, you can post it in the chat. But yeah, it was actually a pretty compelling kind of talk on the whole thing, and it was less factoring into like how did this happen, because it linked to other studies that said no, yeah, this is totally possible. Our power grid is vulnerable for multiple reasons. Then what's going to happen? And assuming their attempt was that, if the government could somehow hold some kind of tenuous hold on the people and to, help reestablish itself, how would you go about that? It was actually a pretty interesting read, not very long either. So I'll look it up. I did
the government ahead of time, because you never know when weather's going to happen. So as soon as possible, really, but ahead of time, just take all the guns in, and then that way, if something like that ever happens or when it happens, none of the gun nuts will be out there killing everybody.
That's right.
And that way all the criminals won't have guns either. So it'll be pretty peaceful if that does happen.
Yeah. Guns didn't necessarily come up, but it definitely was a discussion of, yo, dog, you should have been preparing for this for a long time ago. And the study blatantly pointed out that, yeah, we're behind on being prepared, kind of thing. The whole government.
As a government and
as a government. Yeah. Like we would not be able to recover, kind of thing.
Well, let's look at that scenario from a different perspective. Look at some of the urban centers and things. And if, let's say, I'm in Texas, let's say DFW, pretty much the entire, DFW goes down. Can you imagine the mass chaos with no electricity? Can you imagine the amount of crime and death and just apocalyptic scenario? Because I don't see people acting normal in a situation like that.
Well, when you have
just the power being down,
right? When you have like Katrina, that evacuated, so the power was out, but also things were flooded, and there was literally people rooting you out of there, like you couldn't stick. It was a disaster area. You're talking like this, where like pretty much everything else is the same as normal. It's just that there's no electricity there anymore. That means there's no refrigeration and no food that a lot of people depend on, because not that many people have non-electric storage of food, right?
Right. Right. And a lot of people, let's face it, a lot of people strictly eat like pre-cooked. Like they go to the fast food joint or whatever around the corner. Or,
I didn't even think about that.
They don't even keep groceries.
I thought you were going to say like they have TV dinners and stuff, because I know people that have like a week's worth of TV dinners, because next week I might watch something different or whatever.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
But yeah, when you're talking people that literally live at restaurants, what do they do when there's no restaurants? Because there's no restaurants, period, when there's no electricity.
Nope.
I found the link.
Maybe the barbecue joint. That'd be about it.
Okay, so Budget is saying, have you guys read 1 Second After by, I don't know how to say the guy's name.
Yeah.
William R. whatever. Mm-hmm. So very realistic novel. So Hosh has read it. I've read it. Gary? 1 Second After book?
No, I haven't.
Clover?
Negative.
Promethea?
No.
Amazing. Can't imagine why you didn't read that book. And then Night Strike?
I will have to say, no, I haven't read this one either.
Oh, come on. Well, that's...
Well, here's the question. Does it come in audio?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's been around forever.
There you go.
I'm almost positive I listened to it on YouTube even. So it wasn't hard to find. So there's 1 second after, and then it's like, 1 minute after, and then or something like that. There's like 3 of them, I think. So it is definitely an excellent, realistic situation of what the hell happens, an EMP or something like an EMP.
Yeah, it's an EMP.
And
in
like
that book
the
it
whole
is.
entire East Coast is out. So much more than any infrastructure could ever support. So things go down, period. And then there are craziness, and this is focused on what, West Virginia or North Carolina or someplace. It's kind of like in the mountains, kind of foothills mountains of somewhere.
Those books get all mixed up in my head with Rawls, who's the other guy.
This is
WRLES.
the one that's down by the Cumberland Gap, right? It's right.
Yeah,
there.
I think so.
I think so. Anyway, it's sort of like a town that's not a big city, so they don't get immediately destroyed by carnage like you guys are talking about.
Right.
But they have a chance to live through it and actually survive through it because they're rural enough that they're savvy still about how to live and not be idiots, and then they're not like they have enough resources. They're like on a hill in the mountains, so they have like more than just a big farm or something. They got actual resources where they can survive. Anyway, super interesting, very, very interesting. It's mostly about the society side of it, less about the tech or whatever, the actual like nuts and bolts of survival. But it doesn't hold back. He addresses the nuts and bolts, and it's very realistic.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've read the guy Rawls too, right?
Which one's that?
Patriots, I think is the book title.
I don't know if I read that one. I don't necessarily go for these, but back in the days of years ago chatting, somebody brought up this 1 second after, and I found it really easily, like I say, on YouTube or something to listen to, and it was really good. And it was not, well, I don't remember it being like an 8-hour one. I think it was it was a couple hours or something. It wasn't impossible to listen to.
It's one of those situations where it's like we're not I guess don't focus on the how we got here or how we would potentially get there. Focus on the what would you do when you're in that situation, or what people are more likely to do in that situation. And the very quick lesson is people will be assholes. So be prepared for assholes, right? That's kind of the thesis of the book.
Well, I think like what's that TV show that was cool? From Kansas?
Jericho
is kind of cool, but it was pretty far-fetched. Like they really
very far-fetched,
crazy. But this one was a lot more realistic, and so so got a couple of suggestions out there. I think you said something out St. Helens, but we got Enrique is here in Tucson. He said his neighborhood lost 26 power poles during a microburst monsoon storm once. So he had power out for 2 weeks. So here the power is still on telephone poles or whatever, like above ground. And every once in a while we do get these like tiny, I guess you call them like tiny tornado kind of things. They don't even look like a tornado. They just happen really quick and then they're gone. But if they happen right next to power lines like that, they'll take out 6 of them because they'll pull 2 or 3 and then other ones just fall down. So I've seen that happen. It wasn't 2 weeks over here, but I live closer to like a high school and stuff, maybe, I don't know, but he said he was down for 2 weeks, and that's real life. Guy is saying LA water comes from North Underground. Okay, so that's Budget asking about that book. Budget has a link, by the way. Hunter saying I live in the Seattle area. We had an unexpected snowstorm that knocked power out for 7 days. People literally emptied the grocery stores. Basically, panic started to settle in for a lot of people. And that's snow hitting. So unless you've got people on the periphery of all that who have the ambition and the ability to get in and bring supplies in, that could be pretty crazy depending on how big the snowstorm is, right?
Snow adds a whole nother problem of like, what do you do with all the damn snow? Because it's just dumping constantly. And if you're running off gas, where do you get the gas from? Where is it coming in from? What sides are not going to be serviced because the gas is coming from this side and that's where the trucks are coming from. It's a nightmare. Snow is a big problem. I mean, it sounds dumb, but it's like, no, it's like a legit mini disaster. Think about it. Every time there's a big flood or a big storm coming in, what's the news story? Diapers, water, and booze or whatever is gone in major superstores. Why? Because nobody prepares for anything. They live hand to mouth. I mean, that's humans in their entirety of existence.
One practical way to be prepared for stuff like this is to have some kind of commodity that you could use for barter and exchange, and one that is proven to be valuable under any circumstances are PVC patches. And you're able to get a set of 12 of those on Indiegogo from some different 2A organizations. And since they're collectible, they'll probably be even more valuable in a shit hits the fan situation. So we'll drop a link to a limited time offer that you can check out if you decide to click on that link.
And remember, patches are lighter than silver or gold. So you're able to carry more currency with you at any one time.
Pregnant women can put patches all around their like robe or something, and then that way they can carry them, and a lot lighter than gold. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Southpaw says you lost power for 5. Oh no, you just said that. So then, wait, did we say that one? No. So Southpaw says he lost power for 5 days a few years ago due to a winter storm. That winter storm. Now owns a generator. I was just looking at generators the other day. I was looking for something else, like a paint. No, I was looking for an air compressor, and I was looking around. And I saw the generators, and there was some for like $200, like 150.
I mean, we could talk about generators. I got thoughts on that.
Don't you got to worry about having clean generation, or do you do some sort of a filter before it hits your radios?
Well, there's different generators. So if you're talking about like a Harbor Freight generator, that works off of a stator. A stator motor is like a brushed motor, and the brushes create like a square wave, and that will mess with radios. But there are inverter types that are made by like Honda and Yamaha, for instance. And what you generally do with those is you'll charge your battery off of the Honda generator, and that battery is what you feed into the radio, and the battery kind of acts like a filter or a buffer from some of that interference. And you also you generally try to get them far apart from each other. But I'm a big fan of the Yamaha and Hondas.
So what's the difference between that one and the regular brush motor that I think everybody's more familiar with, where you take 2 coils and run them past each other in a circle?
Yeah. So a stator goes full idle, kicks up, goes to the idle at which it operates power, and then that's what it just turns power out on that. An inverter charges its load. It charges up its idle based off of the load you're putting on it. That's why they have like a peak wattage output and then like a just operating power output. So with the Yamaha, it's like 2,000 watt peak output, but then it goes back to 1,600 or something like that. So the problem with those Hondas and the Yamahas is that you need like a lot of them if you're going to run like a refrigerator or like a microwave or something like that. You generally use those kind of things for more sensitive equipment, charging your batteries up, that kind of stuff. If you just want to like power a refrigerator, then just get a big old dumb generator and run that thing. The problem with those is that they're loud because, again, going back to the stator system, they idle high. Those inverters, if you're just not sipping energy, but if you're running a laptop or running comms equipment or whatever, they're much quieter. So,
So there's still motors, or are they physically different than a motor?
No, there's still a motor, but the motor's idle and throttle is controlled by the inverter, and that's drawing power based off of the load that's put on it.
Okay, so it's more like a smart motor that's get better gas mileage then?
Yes, considerably better.
Okay. So Adam is saying, what's everyone's most likely nationwide SHTF cause thought? So weather, volcano, civil war, world war, disease, plague. So that's an interesting one. So we got, I'm going to choose those 3 because out of that set. So of this set, I'm going to put them in the side chat so you can see them if that helps you. I'm going to say put them in order. So everybody else out there, here's the list. Put them in order with like a 1 and then a 2 or something, and we can compare. So we've got weather, we got civil war, and we got disease. Let's say those 3 to break it down. So weather, disease, or war.
In the order of most likely?
Yeah, what order?
Or worst?
Which order are most likely?
Weather, without a doubt.
Yeah, but weather, you mean, so I'm assuming when they say weather/volcano, they mean large enough that it's a huge effect, not a localized disaster, a big
nationwide. So it's something we have not seen. We have not yet seen that, right? Because even Katrina wasn't national. Right. We were all aware the earthquakes have been
Yeah.
Now, I just watched some earthquake movie the other day, San Andreas, and they say that a 9-point Richter, whatever, is gonna rumble in New York. Is that true?
Yeah, because so the Richter scale is it's a parabola. It's exponential in its growth. So 6.0 is like strong, but nothing in compared to a 7.0. And I was in a 6.7, but a 7.0 is even bigger than a 6.7. So you're thinking 7, 8, 9. A 9 is like there may have been a 9 before, but yeah, you'd feel that across a continental plane kind of thing. And we'd be dead. California would be dead if that was San Andreas.
I don't trust that movie because the movie starts out with that one guy, like, and he goes,
The Rock?
Or no, the other guy who's supposed to be like the weather guy or the earthquake guy who knows all, whatever saves the world. And then by learning about how the seismic is going to, anyway, so he goes something about, he says some dumb name like Torrance, New Mexico, Torrance, Nevada. And I'm like, there's no town named Torrance, Nevada near Boulder. There's Boulder and there's Vegas. That's it. So I looked on a map and there's no such town. So I went on the internet and it's like all the fake things in the San Andreas movie. So I'm like, oh, this is probably like 90% fake earthquake.
90% of Arizonans went onto the internet to complain about Torrance.
Yes.
So in order of bad to, but like least likely, like most likely to least likely?
Most likely to least likely.
Yeah, so I would say World War, followed by Civil War, followed by weather, volcano, and then disease, plague. That would be my pick.
Oh, shit, you put disease last. Okay, Clover, what order are you putting me in?
I would, first national, whatever. I mean, I would think disease, plague would be first, and then followed by weather, and then Civil War, World War.
The problem with disease is that if we haven't experienced it yet, and we know all the previous diseases and we've created vaccinations for said diseases, it's hard for something new to get created. And the fear mongering over like the superbug that is antibiotic resistant is not enough that would create a global, a nationwide disaster.
Well, now, it's not your fault. Okay, you probably haven't seen the documentary, but I seen the end of this one documentary, and a bird eats a banana, and he's got the bird disease, and then the banana falls down, and a monkey eats it, and now, or no, wait, a pig eats it, and then that guy goes to make the pig, and he sticks his hand in the mouth, and then he shakes this one girl's hand, and then the world ends. So
that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to have a communicable disease like that can pass so quickly and take out a whole nation.
But you gotta look at it from another perspective. Look at history. Okay, World War I. Okay, they were fighting World War I, and then towards the end of World War I, the Spanish flu just comes out of nowhere and spreads all over the damn world.
You're right, but we have grown considerably medically and scientifically since then.
That's not to say someone can't release a type of disease that could, spread that fast and that quick.
No,
well, my question was going to be, where does that fall if it's not a natural disease or plague? It's a manufactured disease plague that's administered somehow.
But
that becomes war then, right? Because that becomes an act of war.
Hold on. But though that disease that's like they did this. That super disease doesn't exist, and the capability to make that disease doesn't exist right now. So it's kind
that
of
we know of.
Well, yeah, but then, okay, so aliens are the most likely. Alien invasion is the most likely. Because I can't quantify it, therefore it's the most likely. Okay, I win.
Okay, so Clover, you went, what order?
I went disease, weather,
then war.
War, yeah.
Gary, what are you saying?
I'd rather go with the order they appear on the side chat. Weather first, then Civil War, and then disease.
Interesting. Hosh, did you say your order?
I did. I picked World War first, then weather, then disease, because that's the order of the most likely. Sorry.
That's fine. Night Strike?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with disease, weather, and war.
All right. Arminthia?
I don't know. I'm thinking war, weather, and disease.
So you're in the medical field, so you and Hosh.
Good answer. Good answer. Strong answer. I'm going full Family Feud. Good answer. Good answer. Good answer.
So you said war, weather, disease, though.
Yeah, war, weather, then disease.
That's the same thing I said.
Okay, so let's see what we got out there. I'm gonna go with weather, then disease, then war. I just don't see war happening. Not to the national level. I mean, that would be it'd be massive. It would take a lot to knock us down, I would think. Somebody putting their answers in here? I saw we had a couple.
I do want to repeat the comment that I put in the chat. I won't discount anti-vax moms killing us all, though. That's a thing that could happen.
Now, Hunter said weather, economics, and then war.
Yeah, that's a tough one because that implies that it's a non-fluid thing that won't change immediately to adjust for the needs of the people. So that's a government. That's a government. Economics. So you can't. Economics doesn't melt down and become something impossible to function anymore. It would be the government that sets up regulation or tries to force something that would lead to us dying. Don't blame economics.
Budget is saying nationwide would be war, disease, and then weather. Got Cooper saying disease, then war, none of the other. So that's another, I guess, with you guys that's then aren't too worried about disease. And then what do we got left?
I'm worried about all of them. I would consider that, like, again, it's not how you get to the shit hits the fan. It's that you're there. What do you do? Assume that any one of those things are likely to happen, right? So, what then? That's why it always cracked me up, like Doomsday Preppers. They were always like, well, why do you think the world's going to end? It's like, well, it doesn't matter why they think it's going to end. It's that it could. Don't you want to prepare?
We're not talking about any. We're talking about a nationwide situation, nationwide.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
No, I know, but I'm talking about here, though. We're just saying nationwide catastrophe. So I was just trying to put this all in perspective so that then we could deal with the actual consequences. So no matter what we think is the number one, I guess a couple of people said war first. And, war is a giant word. So it could mean anything from a little thing to a big thing, even at the national level. So weather, since that's a bunch of people's, and it doesn't seem like too many people are concerned about disease first. When we go to weather, are we thinking, a lot of people are saying Yellowstone. So is that imminent? Is it unnecessary cause for alarm? Or is that something that we should all be literally preparing for?
I wouldn't say it's unnecessary. There are valid reasons to be concerned about that. I mean, that's why people worry about it. I mean, hell, we had a solar flare that, this is quote unquote solar weather, but it's not on our planet. There was a solar flare that our sun emitted that if it hit us, it wasn't aimed at us. If it hit us, it would have basically taken down the power grid. Boop. Done.
And those happen all the time.
To that level, not all the time, but enough that it was like, again, you gotta appreciate how big space is and how far the sun is away from us. If it was pointed at us, that is a minute chance that it would just happen that way. But if it did, then it would actually be very effective in messing up our grid. And that doesn't even have to be man-made EMP. That's the sun. That's the sun just taking us out.
Okay, so that's something that comes from the outer spaces. What about stuff coming up from the lavas? So we got to worry about earthquakes more than volcanoes, or storms more than winter issues, or rising oceans?
Earthquakes could trigger other stuff, though, right?
That's true.
So earthquakes, you trigger tsunamis, you could trigger volcanoes, you could all kinds of things.
The super volcano gets kicked off by an earthquake. I mean, it's possible. I don't know the likelihood of that, but
yeah, kind of a chain effect. So probably earthquake, if you were talking, which could be the most damaging.
A lot of people are saying Madrid. That's the Mississippi one, St. Louis.
Or are they talking about Madrid, legit Madrid?
No. I'm assuming they're talking about the Madrid fault line. It's Madrid, Spain. Who cares?
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
It would be pretty wicked.
They go through Missouri,
Spain.
Arkansas, I believe. Yeah.
Juice is putting down a bet. Madrid will go in 20 years. There it is. Main threat in his line. Fault line. Yep.
All right. So I guess again the idea there was to set a stage. So let's say worst case scenario, and it's the Yellowstone volcano blows up, and I think there's been chats where we've looked at some sort of map that has some sort of interactive thing, and you can set it to either a size of that volcano or some intensity, and it shows you the typical weather patterns and where that's going to distribute its cloud and who's all going to be affected for how long. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with that to know what we're talking national, so I'm guessing that's going to take, I think it goes east, right? So pretty much the volcano went off, it would kill everything around it, and then the cloud goes east. So down here, I think we'd be all right. Texas would probably be fine, right? I think
it will cover. I mean, my understanding is it will cover the entire nation if Mount St. Helens.
You mean Yellowstone?
Yellowstone, sorry. Mount St. Helens is another one that people bring up. It would do enough that it would block out most of the continental United States.
What's ELE? Obnoxious is saying Yellowstone's an ELE.
Extinction level event.
Oh. So you're saying that in 2019, we can become extinct still? We don't have enough bunkers and food preps and guns?
Oh, that goes. We talked about this a long time ago. Is the whole zero level society, first level society, second level society? We're a zero level society. We basically just take the fruit off of trees and use that for power. We're just picking up stuff off the ground and we use that as power. First level society uses the power generated by the planet, tides, solar, sun, wind, and volcanoes being one of the larger ones, and seismic activity to generate power that we sustain our nations and our countries with. We aren't anywhere near that level. We're still a very young society in the eyes of the guy. I can't remember. Somebody will probably know in the chat, but there was somebody that postulated on the scale of societies, a zero level is where we're at, like the lowest common denominator.
But couldn't you have some type of, because you're talking about it filling the sky with all this stuff, right? Basically talking about ash cover, the cloud or whatever. Couldn't you have some kind of a vacuum system that would just like, you could suck that into a cavern or a cave somewhere or whatever? You know what I mean?
Not to do enough effect, right?
To purify it. So you're telling me if everybody in let's say Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, everybody that had access to a vacuum cleaner all went outside on the same day and stuck them up in there and turned them on. They couldn't do nothing with it.
I mean, you're better off trying to make it rain. Rain would be the most effective thing in clearing that out.
I think that's dangerous talk. Imagine if everyone actually did that. I'm scared.
You got to be careful.
Earth would move, like it would skip like 3 or 4 feet. Orbit.
Yeah, put it on a trajectory toward the sun or something crazy like that.
If we turned all our vacuums on simultaneously, I believe we would move the orbit of the Earth. We'd shift because it would pull. The pulling, right? The pulling would.
We'd lose a day, perhaps.
Who knows? We could invent time travel at that point.
So if we're talking, everybody's saying that it's an extinction level event and it would take out 2/3, most would die. Is that something you prepare for? Or is that just something you decide, okay, well, then that ends everything and you move on?
I don't like talking about the ELEs because then it's like, well, why prepare for anything if we're just going to eat it immediately?
Your preparation for an ELE is to enjoy your life, right?
Right.
Let's look at if you're in, let's say, border states, right? Let's say you're in Texas, Mexico, Arizona, whatever, or even East Coast. There would be a time frame that you could potentially at least get further south or further, right?
After a volcano goes off, sure, but then so is everybody else, and that goes to the nature of humanity turning into bloodthirsty monsters.
Right.
I don't know. There's that crazy movie about like in 15 minutes the world freezes, or I forgot what that cold spot or something. That one weird movie.
The Day After Tomorrow. Produced Day After Tomorrow. Art Bell was one of the producers or writers of that thing. The late Art Bell. Yeah.
I'll watch it again now because of that. I didn't know.
Yeah, right. I was like, dude, Art, you're getting a little crazy there, bud.
But the idea that that movie had a bunch of people like trying to mass, and
The
then
super hurricane that took a laser beam of instant cold death, put it over. It was hunting. The hurricane started hunting people. That's how dangerous it was. It just kept following the protagonist, trying to get him in the beam and kill him. Wild, man.
But that one did address the idea that like what would happen if a bunch of people had a bit of a warning and tried to move. And then there was another one about cold where they went down into some underground place and they had snowmobiles. And in that one, the weather changed rapidly, and like only so many people were able to get their way to south or something. Or was that the same movie? I don't know. There's a couple of those movies that had the idea.
The day after tomorrow was like they were in a library in New York and they started burning all the books to keep from the laser beam of ice death killing them. And then one of the science guy who proclaimed this was happening left to go find his son in New York. That was the day after tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know if there's a bad disaster movie that I haven't seen.
So we all pull together as gun channels and we buy an old aircraft carrier. That's the answer.
Oh, man.
All right.
Yeah. The gun channel's aircraft carrier.
Can you imagine? Aircraft carrier, solar panels across the deck, we'll be all right. Just float around and fish all day. Be good.
We'd have to use satellite internet.
The whole world would be extinct except for us, though. So we wouldn't need the internet. We could just like
talk to each other.
Go in a room and talk to each other.
You wouldn't need.
You mean we couldn't have these hangouts anymore? I don't think we could handle that.
Okay, nice, right. Just for you, we will use the intercom system.
We wouldn't
need.
Chat rooms would literally be just a room in the aircraft carrier where we chatted at.
No, it's awesome. We wouldn't need Instagram anymore. You just put your gun on the deck of the ship, and then you'd have everybody stand at a very odd angle, and they'd be like, "Look at it this way, though. Look at it this way. Doesn't it look good when you look at it from this angle?" Boom.
Here's the hashtags I would have put on this one.
Yeah. Hashtag the deck of the ship we're on.
Hashtag this gun rocks.
Hashtag we're all standing here anyway.
Stunting. Hashtag stunting. Man, that's easy. That's easy stuff. And you got like a flashlight that you're trying to put like a weird, like check out this coating that I got though. How'd you do the coating? Oh, down in the boiler room. The guys are doing like an anodized shop. Pretty much everywhere is an anodized shop on the gun channel's ship at this point. Any open vessel it was for like it was a sink at one time. We turned it into an anodizer.
Parts washer.
Parts washers.
All right, so that's what L. Ron Hubbard did, right? What is that one? What book are they talking about?
Battleship. No, Battlefield Earth.
Oh,
see. Give me enough. Yeah, but L. Ron Hubbard is a crazy enough fool that you could just. He had Sea Org, he has a ship that he ran.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We would do much better than Sea Org, I promise.
Yep.
Let's see. Lockjaw is asking if we'd seen the survival bunkers they're selling. So bunkers are definitely a thing back in the war, back in the Cold War. And I know I've been in lots of Cold War bunkers throughout the years because they're cool as hell, and a lot of people had them. Number one, has anybody got a bunker? I guess you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, or have you been in a bunker? And then, do you think bunkers are worth having anymore?
Yes and yes.
I don't have a bunker. They might be useful depending on where you are geographically.
That's true too. Yeah.
I think what Lockjaw's talking about is these big plastic things that are almost like what you'd put underground for like a gas tank or like underneath a gas station or like a giant water tank, except they kind of mod them so that they can be more of a habitat. And then you've got that kind of pre-made, you just dig a giant hole, put that thing in there, fill it back up, and you've got a structure that's basically, completely plastic and sealed. So all the issues with condensation and rust and stuff from the other ways you could create something are accomplished, and then you basically look like a manhole usually to get down into it. And I don't know. I think those things can be super. I mean, compared to the olden days where you had to dig a hole and build something, and then like I say, deal with all the condensation and insulation and everything. Like those things, it seems like the time to live if you really wanted to put a bunker in.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that you'd have to have enough preparedness to be down there for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks is like the low end. You'd have to be in there for a while to kind of outlive the assholes. That's the, you got to be down there for a while, and then coming out after a couple of days that only saved you from the immediate destruction, but it's not fixing the other problem. You know what I mean?
Sure, but again, it depends on if you consider like a nuclear blast or something like an actual issue like they were concerned about back in the day. But just thinking of like an underground, basically hidden, very secure place to retreat to and a place to store valuables can, let you outlast a bad, let's say a roving mob or whatever. And you're gonna, your house, so you're not gonna be able to defend it. So you can retreat to the bunker. Hopefully, it's got a hidden entrance or something. Or a secured door or something, so you can get down there and survive, like you say, like some hardships. But then having that place to, again, store things hidden, secure, and out of sight, and then again a place to retreat to, I would think that'd be super valuable in the rebuilding stages, right? When you never know, something weird might happen.
Yeah, I mean, until like somebody finds your bunker and they put a porta potty on top of the door or something, and you can't get out anymore and you die.
Yeah, that would suck.
I mean, that's the thing is like it could go many different ways. Being prepared means many different things to many different people. Having a bunker is one way, and if you're in an area where like no one's going to find your bunker, then yeah, go to town. If you're in the middle of the suburbs, then maybe not.
Obnoxious saying his grandparents had a bunker. It was a cinder block room with an open passage that had a couple of turns. Yeah, that's the kind of things I've seen. Basically places that were like in addition to just the general storage area that was like a place to basically retreat to.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been in a bunker myself, but I think they're a good idea. Depending on the application. But again, if there's any kind of war going on and any country decides they're going to use nuclear weapons, I'd want to be in a bunker protected from, nuclear fallout.
Well, these plastic jobbers might not be the way to go then.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't. You'd want something lined with lead and ventilation systems.
Like scrubbers, not just ventilation. You're talking about air scrubbers to get the radioactive air out of there, right? I mean, that's the trick. Is like just putting a bunker in the ground is like step 0.1.
Yes,
the water supply, the air supply is actually more of an engineering problem than just sinking a hole and putting a thing in it.
I mean, yeah, sure. You can take a store, one of those shipping containers from a cargo ship, shove it in the ground and put dirt over it.
Hell
but,
yeah.
If you don't have a ventilation system with, air scrubbers, then you're going to die.
Yeah. You're just bringing in the air that's radioactive into where you're at. And the water is another problem. Like how much water do you have on hand? Can you clean the water? Can you reuse water? What do you do? Like it's a super, super complicated problem.
Yeah, and you got to get rid of your waste and lots of stuff. So, and you can't just put one of those cargo containers on the ground pretty much anywhere. They're going to rust out pretty quick. So there's all kinds of prep you got to do to those things to have them last for any length of time by the time you put all that effort into them.
Yeah, it's actually really expensive to go to like that level of prepper.
Oh yeah, like I said, they're not designed for going underground, so that's quite a bit of prep to get them to where they're not going to be destroyed. Stick them underground.
And when most people shove them in the ground, they usually, shove them in concrete. They basically line them with concrete when they shove them in the ground.
They have to because of what you had said.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy that comment said, how about chemical and biological attacks. I mean, you can't, I mean, aside from, you know, if that's coming, unless you're like in the close vicinity, so you can possibly have the proper level of micron filtration mass for your family or whatever, or other people. Then what? I mean, you're literally.
We're talking different than disease. Disease is like you can wear a gas mask around and hope you don't get the disease from somebody. When we're talking chemical and biological, we're talking about nerve agents and we're talking about caustic agents. You don't simply wear a gas mask. There's procedures to put on you have like neutralizers and things that you put on in order, like that are chemically designed and have expiration dates. They're like handy wipes that you have to put on a certain order. And that was back in the day. I don't even know what they have now, but you have to know how to wipe your mask, you know how to wipe your face in order to even put your mask on without killing yourself, because you're basically trying to create an environment that's going into your lungs, right? So you got to be able to clean that out. So there's knowledge just to even get on a mask. Then your mask is good for X amount of time. Your filter is good for X amount of time. And unless you have multiple disposable stockpiles of that stuff, a mask is barely going to make you comfortable while you die. Barely. It's going to make you probably more uncomfortable. So if we're talking nerve agents and we're talking caustic agents, your best bet, honestly, is probably just take some deep breaths and try to die quickly. That shit is fucking horrible. You basically seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. Imagine that. No gas mask is helping you. No milk is helping you. Thank goodness that shit doesn't happen, because that's some nasty, nasty, horrible shit.
But we're talking about like a nationwide disaster.
That would take, I don't even know if how you even distribute that.
Yeah,
that's massive.
But
certainly if somebody was able to send like a rogue, I don't even know how you distribute that shit. You know, somehow you distribute that, it would only affect the amount of people that the bomb actually hit and whatever. You know, that's not, I mean, that would, you could do it like simultaneously take out half the country, I guess. I don't know. Somehow you could make it a national thing, but that's certainly not a disease which is running rampant by people coughing on each other. You don't cough caustic agents and biological shit onto each other. You just die. Horribly.
Yeah, I was thinking more when he said chemical, biological. I was focusing less on the chemical because chemical is more localized. Biological would be more like a biologically created disease or whatever, an infection. And that would be, again, that's protocol. That's cleanliness protocols. And you could actually, so I would assume it would be like contact or air, which is very rare. That's a whole different topic. An airborne disease is, you can fight against that. A disease you can fight against, because then again, that's a certain level of breathing that a chemical agent mask is different. It's a different level of filtration. You could survive that. But again, that's a lot of work too, because none of our homes have
chemical, you're not surviving. You might
not. I didn't say. I said it's not. If it was a biologically created like disease or flu, you could have that's a filtration system that's much more attainable than a chemical attack.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, you could probably take a bath in bleach or something and then use that bleach over and over again. Where chemical, you might put a mask on, but the rest of your body's melting.
Yeah, your skin's like burning. So the problem with that is most homes aren't outfitted with like a 2-stage system that is, you know, sealed, that you could go into. Like if you had to go outside to scavenge or whatever, you go outside and you got it all over you and you bring it back into the home, you have to like clean all that off and take off your gear and hang that up, and then you can go inside. That's a whole nightmare process.
Counter sarin or chlorine? I mean, I don't really know, but I suspect no, because they give you a gas mask. They don't give you like an anti-sarin cloud or something.
I got Banaka. Banaka will do it, I heard.
But I don't know. I mean, there's probably improvisational methods of dealing with things. You know, maybe rubbing, I don't know, like Vaseline all over your exposed skin or charcoal. I mean, I don't know what the fuck it would be. There might be something, but I don't know.
I think it's just Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator. You just go full mud.
Mud?
I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't do that.
Yeah.
It won't matter if it happens, but
those are not things you can really prep for, basically. Those are things that are those whatever they said, ELEs. All right, so I think we kind of went all over the place tonight. So 27 people are still watching. We got 23 thumbs. That's pretty awesome. Thanks for that. Had a good conversation with everybody. Clover and Armenthea lost their internet, so they jumped out, but it is getting kind of late. Thanks everybody who jumped in for being part of the panel tonight. And let's see what we got over here as far as notes. Are we missing anything? Yeah, a picture of some stuff to look at, but we don't have to look at that. And Hush, you got a store to recommend? A new one you haven't mentioned before?
No. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So that means that it's up to y'all to come up with a gun shop of the day and think about a gun shop you haven't been to in a while and consider visiting it. Maybe this weekend, or I don't know, whenever you can make an excuse to get to wherever it happens to be. Tomorrow's Friday, so Hosh will be doing the M Radio
Crash course. Talking to USNER Doc, by the way.
That's right. Yeah, duh.
Yes.
Put two together. And then Gary's got Foul Territory.
Yep.
Looking forward to that. Budget may or may not be out there anymore. He's got a show tomorrow as well. And we'll be back here for Friday, and it is Free Patch Friday. We'll be doing some cool stuff I just learned off the internet earlier today. I'm going to play with tomorrow, so there might be some live Free Patch Friday stuff happening. You're going to want to check your couches for any kind of loose change. It's okay to go to your mom's purse and rummage through there. If you find a bunch of extra cash or maybe a credit card, use that, and then go over to Gear website store and just spend all kinds of unnecessary money. Feel free to go into credit card debt. Like I say, if you got your parents' credit card, they said it's okay. And buy.
Bitcoin, if you're ready to offload some Bitcoin, now would be a good time.
Great idea. Money, watches, other valuable items. Our email is out there.
We already covered that. Patches are worth more than Bitcoin and silver and gold because they're so much lighter. You can carry them and they're rare. So,
but seriously, I did figure out something to play with tomorrow. And every once in a while, I got to take some time off from the taxes are killing me, driving me nuts, just doing all kinds of duplicate entries and stuff that's just trying to get everything balanced. So get wiggy from that, and I'll go play around. I played around drawing some the Gun Channels Rocks cartoon today, kind of played off the Schoolhouse Rocks. And tomorrow I'm going to play with something else. And, well, after I get done playing with taxes a little bit more. And again, thanks to everybody for joining us live, being part of this daily conversation about guns. Watch the interesting stuff that'll happen tomorrow and over the weekend on Gun Channels. I guess I'll mention the sign-on, the login over on Gun Channels is working again. That had been broken for a while. Appreciate everybody's patience on that. It takes a little time to go back and forth with the text sometimes. And honestly, just to have time to remember to do those things. Sometimes things go a day or two before you remember that you're in the process of working on something. So appreciate everybody's patience on that. And see you tomorrow.